SPA will alternately be known by the more formal denomination Unclassified Hominid Phonetic Alphabet. That was recommended by several scientists that helped me out with this. Okay, until such time as the subject being is scientifically classified or documented linguistic contact has been established. Sasquatch, quote, is used here as a generally accepted term for the subject being. A variation of the English Reformed Phonetic Alphabet is used as transcribed from the Barry-Moorhead tapes. And this, as I mentioned yesterday, this next paragraph by a doctor of linguistics and philosophy at Cal State Berkeley said this next line, first line in the second paragraph, is one of the most important lines she's ever read on the subject of Sasquatch. Since it's the first time anyone's come out and said that Sasquatch exists, period. And in one sentence tells you why Sasquatch exists. Okay? Now these are her words, by the way. The existence of the Sasquatch being is hereby assumed, since any creature must exist before his language. The only argument anybody can have about that is to say that this is not Sasquatch language. It's some other being that's not human. But what kind of cans of worms does that open up? If it's not Sasquatch and it's not human, what else could it be? Okay. Any argument for the existence of Sasquatch or his language should be given outside of the standard and outside of any transcription endeavor that uses this standard. And the reason for that is we have to isolate transcriptions of the language for the use of language study only. And the argument as to whether or not Sasquatch exists should already be assumed as an a priori concept before you go into that, right? So that the language study can continue. Right? Anyway, the rest of that is pretty self-explanatory. It's kind of written, again, as a standard of procedure, military style. It uses that type of language. Did I show you what? Well, I did show you what the transcripts look like. The reason that we use, and it's explained in the standard, I use capital letters for the Sasquatch language, and I use regular linguistic standards for the language that the humans are speaking in the tapes. Whatever tapes it is that happen to be being transcribed. Okay. The reason for that is we don't have a grammar, therefore it's meaningless and useless to decide which letters should be capitalized and which should not be capitalized in the Sasquatch language. The concept of words cannot be defined until they can be confirmed with a speaker. The speaker that's speaking the language. This is something we can't do with Sasquatch yet. So that concept would be meaningless to discuss words. We discuss Sasquatch language in terms of morphemes and phonemes. Phonemes being the sounds that are articulated by the human tracheal tree and vocal tract, and morphemes being a series of phonemes put together, which we would commonly call syllables. We can't talk about words until we can sit down with a Sasquatch and say, is this what you meant? We're not there yet. Okay. I want to move on to what I promised so many people that I would eventually do. For these last 3 years that me and Ron have been traveling around talking about these, what Ron initially called the Sierra sounds, what I have come to call the Barry/Moorhead tapes. I've been asked, when is the book coming out? When is the study? When are you going to be done with that study? Haven't you been doing this for 3 years? Okay. Well, what we have attempted to do for the last 3 summers is to get up there to the original place where this language is spoken and taped, and to duplicate the evidence. This is what our attempt was. We had decided that the Holy Grail of what our study would be to get me on tape mimicking, and for me it's mimicry, right? The language from the transcripts, which is what I do when I go up on the mountain with Ron. I go up there and I stand on a rock and I do Nagokus de Gabule, Ukuja, Frappe Hogle, Luniko, Duano. And I try to mimic as closely as possible the sounds on the tapes, right? Now, we've got. I wish I'd got some of that reaction from the woods up there. I actually, the closest thing to linguistic evidence that I've received, and I've gotten it 8 times. Twice up on the mountain, twice down off of the mountain, twice in Missouri, and twice in, and it seems to come in a pair of utterances. Twice on the Kansas side, Kansas City. And it was always when I was mimicking these tapes, right? Obviously, the being out there listening to this knows I'm trying to communicate with them. They probably know, I don't know, have absolutely no idea what I'm saying. And I've had people make jokes, I've had my students make jokes about it. You know, are you sure that's not a mating call or something, you know? You're going to get kidnapped. Who knows? But yeah, that's a chance we're taking. But what I have come to call an assentive concession snarl is, and I've come to look on it, the first time I heard it, the first couple times I heard it, it scared me to death, really, as well as my son who was with me. But it sounds like this. It was, and I've got it transcribed as who, SN, who and snarl. And it comes with sometimes with a few seconds interval, and sometimes a couple of minutes interval. As long as I keep up with this, mimicking their language, then it seems it's given almost as a gift. And that's what I've come to accept it as. So, as I go through here and tell you some of the things that happened to us up there, this gift was given to us, to me, well, and to Ron, a couple different times. Now, I brought a lot of stuff that has actually been up on the mountain with us. This is my journal. I'm only going to read you one spot on there because it's pretty lengthy. But this is the songbook I take up there, with old Scottish and Irish folk songs, a couple old gospel tunes, some old Avestan prayers, some of the oldest language known to man. That language that we know came from the area of the Indo-European peoples, that all descendant languages from the Indo-European languages have cognatic words that they share. For instance, the word brother is virtually the same, whether it's in Persian, barudar, as it is in English, brother. Barudar. These are widely dispersed areas of the world, yet they speak in words that they can recognize. So this was my purpose when I go up there. I would say virtually the same thing in several languages: Spanish, Russian, Persian, ancient Indo-European, and English, of course, right? And I would say things like that I've learned from other researchers. This is what you want to do. You want to go up there and say, hey, big brother, come talk to me. This is my friend Ron. This is my son, Stephen. I am Scott. Scottam. Baradariman. You know, and I try to put some good some good stout Sasquatch intonation in there. Very good. Alisha Marchit Dore Barataleman Skatam. Ooh, Ranost. So I try to do that. And surely, some sabotage. This is still on. Oh, that's its own. I've angered the Sasquatch gods. Why am I still talking to that? I can shout loud enough to where you guys can hear me, if you will allow me to. As I always seem to have to. I'm used to doing that too, by the way. I'm used to quieting down a whole room full of people because I'm a teacher, right? So I'll say, well, when Mr. So-and-so is finished, we'll begin. So, anyway, so that's why you have not seen a study, because we were trying to get the final chapter. Something that would, this is validated, the evidence is here already. This is language, there's no argument against it, right? But we were trying to get something, but the problem is it's 35 years ago. We're trying to get something current, something now. If we could get up there to the same, maybe these creatures are the same creatures up there. If we could get them on tape using this, having some morpheme streams that are exactly the same, my God, what would we have? So that's what we've been doing. Right? So, but in trying to do so, some strange things have happened. And again, for the first couple of years, Ron and I said, we would have strange things happen to us. We'd say, and in the morning we're talking about it and say, whatever. And the last thing we would say to each other, whatever. We can't tell anybody about this. It's too weird. We're trying, let alone talking about Sasquatch, let alone talking about that Sasquatch has language. Now, there's no way we can go out and tell him what we just experienced last night. Because we will be grouped together with the paranormal weirdos. Right? I remember that first summer, I was invited with Juan to one of his big meetings up there. It's called Beachfoot up in Oregon. And they had the last paragraph in the whole invitation very clearly said, in big bold letters, no paranormal weirdos invited. I thought this was funny. They're inviting you to a Bigfoot conference, and it says no paranormal weirdos. Let's not have any weirdos types up here, right? So, that's beginning to change. Even up at Beachfoot, some of this weird stuff, and that's the only word I can really use. I can't say paranormal or supernatural, because to me, I teach philosophy. Philosophers have to allow that anything is possible. So that the idea of supernatural is only defining something that we don't understand yet. Or paranormal, it's not normal only because we don't understand it. So that's the approach that I have to take. So I have a few notes here as to what happened chronologically from the first year that we went up there. This is the first time, by the way, that we have together decided that we're going to do this. And we're taking a chance. Right? Hopefully, we have hopes that Ron, a very respected businessman, me, a college teacher, right? That we have a good enough reputation that the headlines will not be tomorrow, Ron Moorhead and Scott Nelson slip over the edge. Right? So we have to have hopes of that. But we still have fears. So what we decided to do, we are not going to draw any conclusions. Do we have our own ideas? Yeah, of course. But we decided we are simply going to tell the truth and leave the conclusions up to you. So when he speaks next weekend, that's why he's not here today, he's speaking in Russia next weekend. Okay? When he speaks in Russia for the first time on an international level, he is going to discuss the same things that I'm discussing here with you today. All right? So, please don't judge me. Is it possible that I could, was I inebriated? For the most part, no. Could I have been delusional? Could I have been dreaming on some of these things? Of course. But it didn't seem like it. It seemed like, indeed, that I was awake. These hands were my own, you know. So, anyway, enough of qualifying what I'm about to tell you.